it's a double rainbow all the way. Whoa, that's so intense.
No, you did not just have an LSD trip, but you had something better. You had the combination of a prop mover and textures in Fortnite Creative. And some of these textures are very unique when it comes down to using them with a prop mover. So today I'm going to show you guys how to use them the most efficient way, so let's jump right into it. And this is what you just witnessed from the outside. You can see it's just two simple primitive shapes that are moving along with the prop mover, but somehow the texture is staying in place. And if you quickly want to try this for yourself, you can go into basically any primitive shape, and the last three options all have this little effect on it. So for example, you can go word grid here. You can also place a simple prop mover on it. The prop mover doesn't actually need any specific setting changes. And if you start the game, you can see that the prop is moving, but the texture is staying, which is very interesting. You can see that on a normal wall with the normal texture, the texture is just staying there, which is great. But on these primitive shapes and on a lot of other items, the texture is actually just staying still while the prop is moving. And the people that are long on Fortnite Creative probably already realized what I'm talking about. Obviously, it's the same texture that is applied to basically any terrain piece. Because I can place it like this and there will still be a flawless transition. It doesn't matter where or how I place this, the texture will always stay the same. But this is not something new in Fortnite Creative. This is actually in for the game since terrain pieces have been in Fortnite Creative. Yes, the primitive shapes are obviously a little bit newer, and these kind of new grids on there are fairly new, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't know that they have the same kind of texture on them. But how can we use this now with the prop mover efficiently to create really cool stuff? Well, as you saw earlier, you can create some really trippy things with this, but that's not the only way in how we can use it. So here's a really cool example of how you can use this in your maps. You can see that I create this train scenario where you can look outside of the windows, you can see the rocks passing by and the grass passing by on the other side. And it's a very simple scenario to set up. And this is how it looks from the outside. You can see that we created something that looks like we spent a whole day creating a map for this, having a train move through the entire map and creating all of this background, where we basically just abuse the textures where everything else is moving forward, but the textures are staying in place. Because as you can see, if we would just create the same thing with textures which are not staying in place and moving actually along with the prop, this would look like. The train would stand still, even though we're moving. And that is a really huge benefit, not only in terms of memory, but also in terms of time savings when creating your map. But what we basically now have is a repeating pattern which repeats over and over again, which is really cool for a few seconds. But if we have this a little bit longer or we want to have some details, we currently cannot do anything about that. But thankfully, there's a trick which we can use to make this look a little bit more alive. For example, we can place basic elements like our waving Josie over there.
Hello there.
You can see the element passes us by, and this only works because of the texture not actually moving. So it actually looks like we're actually passing by a huge grasso and not that the grasso is actually moving with us. But what if you want to have Jonesy appearing at 5 seconds while your train is moving forward? Well, there's a simple solution to this. For example, we can give Jonesy the same prop movers that we have on our train here. Now comes the important thing. We don't want Jonesy to go the full distance with us. So for example, we want Jonesy only to go 20 meters with us. I will move Jonesy a little bit into the way of us so we can actually see what is going to happen. So technically Jonesy would be out of our way and we could not see Jonesy here. But you can see Jonesy now moves with us. And for example, if we look away here in a few seconds, Jonesy will appear and it looks like Jonesy is basically passing us by. And overall, this can create some really unique moments for your gameplay. And you can see how cool this looks and how we basically created our own little cinematic scene inside of Fortnite Creative with the prop mover in just a few minutes. And instead of having to build an entire scenario just for this one little scene that we created like for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, sometimes it's just easier to use the things that Fortnite gives us and abuse them in a sense and create really cool scenarios which are super simple and do not cost that much time and memory, which I think is a huge thing with just 100k memory. And that wraps it about up. Hopefully you could learn something today. Hopefully this was helpful in some kind of sense. And don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys back in the next one. Bye.